In the celestial realm, where immortals feast on peaches that grant eternal life and dragons soar through clouds of pure jade, there exists a stone. Not just any stone, but one that has stood at the summit of the flower fruit mountain since the beginning of time itself, absorbing the essence of heaven and earth, drinking in the power of the sun and moon. For countless millennia, this stone sat undisturbed, growing heavier with cosmic energy, until one day, something impossible happened. The stone cracked open, and from within emerged not a god, not a demon, but a monkey. And this monkey would become so powerful that heaven itself would tremble at the sound of his name. This is the story of Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, a tale of unbridled power meeting immovable discipline, of chaos confronting order, and of how the mightiest warrior in all of creation learned that true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to restrain oneself. The stone monkey opened his eyes for the first time and immediately performed a deep bow to the four corners of the world. As he did so, two beams of golden light shot from his eyes, piercing through the clouds and reaching all the way to the palace of heaven, startling the Jade Emperor himself. The ruler of heaven looked down with concern, but his advisors assured him it was merely a curious phenomenon, nothing to worry about. How wrong they were. The monkey explored his mountain home with boundless curiosity and joy. He discovered he was stronger than the other monkeys, faster, more clever. The creatures of Flower Fruit Mountain naturally gravitated toward him, sensing something extraordinary in this strange being born from stone. When he discovered a hidden cave behind a massive waterfall, diving through the cascading water without fear while the others hesitated, the monkeys proclaimed him their king. He had found his kingdom, but kingdoms, he would soon learn, are not enough for those destined for greatness. Years passed in paradise. The Monkey King ruled his subjects with fairness and joy. They feasted on fruits, played in the forests, and lived without care. But one day, during a great celebration, one of the older monkeys died. The Monkey King saw the body carried away and felt, for the first time, a cold terror grip his heart. Death, the great equalizer, the one thing his strength and cleverness could not defeat. That night, while his subjects slept, he sat alone on the peak of his mountain and stared at the stars. What good was being king if death would eventually claim him like all the others? This question drove him from his mountain paradise. He built a raft and set sail across the vast ocean, searching for immortality. For years he wandered, seeking masters who could teach him the secret of eternal life. Many laughed at the presumptuous monkey. Others ignored him, but the Monkey King possessed something beyond strength or intelligence. He had determination that bordered on madness, and he would not accept no for an answer. Finally, he found the cave of Patriarch Subhoti, a sage of immense wisdom who lived in perfect seclusion from the world. The Monkey King prostrated himself outside the cave for days, refusing to leave until the master agreed to see him. When Subhoti finally emerged, he took one look at the monkey and saw something that made him pause. Here was raw potential unlike anything he had encountered. Dangerous potential. The Patriarch agreed to take the monkey as a student, giving him the name Sun Wukong, meaning, awakened to emptiness. For years, Sun Wukong studied under the master, learning magic and martial arts. But he was an impatient student, always seeking shortcuts, always wanting more power faster. The Patriarch taught him 72 transformations, allowing him to change his shape at will, becoming anything from a tiny insect to a towering giant. He learned to summon clouds and ride them across the sky, traveling thousands of miles with a single somersault. He mastered spells of incredible power. But Sun Wukong could not master himself. One day, showing off his abilities to fellow students, he transformed into a great pine tree. The other students applauded, but the Patriarch saw only a student who had learned power without wisdom, technique without discipline. In anger, the master struck Sun Wukong 3 times on the head and walked away with his hands behind his back. The other students thought their master was simply disappointed, but Sun Wukong understood the hidden message. Come to my chambers at the 3rd watch of the night, through the back door. That night, the Patriarch taught Sun Wukong his greatest skill yet, the art of immortality itself. But with this final gift came a warning and a banishment. The master could see the chaos that would follow this monkey wherever he went. Power without discipline was a catastrophe waiting to happen. Sun Wukong was expelled from the school, warned never to mention his master's name, lest he bring trouble to the sage's door. Sun Wukong returned to Flower Fruit Mountain, now truly immortal and bursting with magical abilities. His monkey subjects rejoiced at their king's return, but the mountain was under threat from a demon king who had been terrorizing the monkeys in his absence. Sun Wukong confronted the demon and, with his new powers, defeated him easily. But victory was not enough. He needed a weapon worthy of his abilities. He descended to the underwater palace of the Dragon King of the Eastern Sea, demanding a weapon. The Dragon King, hoping to appease this powerful visitor, showed him weapon after weapon, but Sun Wukong found them all too light, too fragile. Then he sensed something deeper in the palace, a pillar that glowed with ancient power. This was the Rui Jingu Bang, the golden banded staff once used by Yu the Great to measure the depths of the ocean. It weighed over 8 tons and could change size at its wielder's command, growing as tall as the heavens or shrinking to the size of a needle. No one had been able to lift the staff for millennia, but Sun Wukong grasped it easily and it responded to his will, shrinking to a perfect size for combat. The Dragon King had no choice but to let him take it. Sun Wukong also demanded armor and a phoenix feather cap, and the terrified Dragon King complied. Dressed in his new regalia and armed with the staff, Sun Wukong looked every bit the warrior god he believed himself to be. But immortality brought a new problem. The bureaucracy of the afterlife still had Sun Wukong's name in the Book of Life and Death. One day, the agents of death came to collect his soul, dragging him in his sleep to the underworld. Sun Wukong awoke in the realm of the dead, furious at this treatment. He fought his way to the very presence of King Yama, the ruler of the underworld, demanding to know why an immortal was being brought to the land of death. The confused magistrates checked their records and found not only Sun Wukong's name but the names of every monkey on Flower Fruit Mountain. In a rage, Sun Wukong snatched the brush from the clerk's hand and crossed out every monkey's name in the Book of Life and Death, granting his entire kingdom immortality. Then he fought his way back to the living world, leaving the underworld in chaos. This could not stand. Both the Dragon King and King Yama filed complaints with the Celestial Court. The Jade Emperor, ruler of heaven, faced a dilemma. This monkey was clearly too powerful to defeat easily, and heaven had been at peace for so long. War would be costly. Instead, his ministers suggested a different approach: co-opt the troublemaker. Give him a position in heaven, bring him into the bureaucracy where he could be controlled. And so Sun Wukong received an invitation to heaven. He was thrilled, believing he was finally receiving the recognition he deserved. He ascended to the celestial realm, his heart swelling with pride. The palaces of heaven were more magnificent than anything he had imagined, built from jade and gold, where immortals in flowing robes moved with serene grace. He was given a title: Keeper of the Heavenly Stables. Sun Wukong threw himself into his new role with enthusiasm, caring for the celestial horses with dedication. It was only after some time that another deity casually mentioned how low-ranking his position was. The Keeper of the Heavenly Stables was barely above a servant. The Jade Emperor had given him a nothing position, a way to keep him busy and contained. The great Sun Wukong, who had mastered 72 transformations and achieved immortality, had been made a stable boy. The rage that followed shook the foundations of heaven. Sun Wukong destroyed the stables, freed the celestial horses, and fought his way out of heaven, defeating every guard and warrior who stood in his path. He returned to Flower Fruit Mountain, planted a banner that read, "Great Sage equal to heaven," and declared himself independent from heaven's authority. The audacity was unprecedented. No one had ever defied the Jade Emperor so openly. Heaven mobilized its armies. Generals and warriors who had maintained peace for eons marched down to Flower Fruit Mountain to bring the rebellious monkey to justice. But Sun Wukong defeated them all. His staff whirled through the air faster than thought, his transformations confused and confounded the celestial warriors, and his immortality made him effectively invincible. Army after army returned to heaven in defeat. The Jade Emperor faced the worst crisis of his reign. Finally, one of his advisors suggested another approach. They could not defeat the monkey, but perhaps they could control him with ego. Offer him the title he had claimed for himself. Make him the great sage equal to heaven. Give him a grand palace, respect, but no actual duties. Keep him happy and contained in heaven where they could watch him. Sun Wukong accepted the new title with satisfaction. He moved into his palace in heaven, attended grand banquets, and socialized with the other deities. For a time, peace reigned. But idle hands, especially hands as powerful as Sun Wukong's, inevitably find mischief. When Sun Wukong discovered he had not been invited to the Great Peach Banquet, where the Jade Emperor's most important officials would feast on the peaches of immortality, his old rage returned. These peaches only ripened once every 1,000 years, and eating them granted additional layers of immortality and power. How dare heaven exclude him from such an important event? Sun Wukong transformed himself into the likeness of a high official and infiltrated the peach garden early. The guardian fairy was easy to trick, and soon Sun Wukong was alone among the precious peach trees. He ate not one or two, but dozens of the rarest peaches, the ones that took 9,000 years to ripen. Each peach he consumed added another layer of immortality to his already deathless form. Still not satisfied, he made his way to the banquet hall and, finding it unguarded, drank the wine prepared for the feast. But this was no ordinary wine. It was infused with the elixir of immortality. Then, in his drunken state, he stumbled into the laboratory of Laozi, the greatest sage of heaven, keeper of the Taoist mysteries. There, he found and consumed the pills of immortality that Laozi had been refining for centuries. By the time Sun Wukong sobered up and realized what he had done, he had achieved immortality through so many different methods that he had become virtually indestructible. The Jade Emperor's patience was exhausted. He dispatched his greatest warrior, the god Erlang Shen, who possessed his own formidable magic and combat skills. The battle between Erlang Shen and Sun Wukong shook the earth and heavens. Both warriors transformed into different shapes, trying to outwit each other. When Sun Wukong became a bird, Erlang became a hawk. When Erlang became a fish, Sun Wukong became a cormorant. The battle raged across land and sky, with neither able to gain a decisive advantage. Finally, through the combined efforts of Erlang Shen, Laozi, and numerous other deities, Sun Wukong was captured. But what to do with him? Execution was impossible. His multiple layers of immortality made him impervious to every method of destruction heaven possessed. They tried beheading, but the blade shattered. They tried burning, but he was immune to fire. They tried lightning, but it could not harm him. Laozi suggested placing Sun Wukong in his crucible, the furnace where he refined his pills of immortality. Surely 49 days in the cosmic flames would reduce the monkey to ash. Sun Wukong was sealed in the furnace, and for 49 days, the fires burned. But Sun Wukong was clever. He found a spot in the furnace that was affected by wind rather than fire and hid there. The smoke stung his eyes, turning them permanently red and golden, giving him the ability to see through any illusion or transformation. But he survived. When the furnace was opened on the 49th day, expecting to find ashes, Sun Wukong burst out more powerful than ever. His eyes now had divine sight, and he was angrier than he had ever been. He fought his way through heaven with renewed fury, his staff extending to impossible lengths, striking down any who opposed him. He smashed his way toward the very throne room of the Jade Emperor. Heaven itself was on the verge of falling. In desperation, the Jade Emperor appealed to the Buddha, whose wisdom and power transcended even the celestial realm. The Buddha descended from his paradise in the west, a figure of perfect calm in the midst of heaven's chaos. He found Sun Wukong rampaging through the celestial palace and stopped him with a simple question. Why do you rebel? What do you truly want? Sun Wukong, staff in hand, declared that he was the most powerful being in existence and deserved to rule heaven itself. The Jade Emperor was weak, and Sun Wukong should sit upon the throne. The Buddha smiled sadly and made a wager. If Sun Wukong could leap out of the palm of his hand, then he would indeed be worthy of ruling heaven, and the Buddha himself would convince the Jade Emperor to step down. But if Sun Wukong could not escape the Buddha's palm, he would have to submit to punishment. Sun Wukong laughed at this. With his cloud somersault, he could travel 108,000 miles in a single leap. A hand, no matter how large, could not contain him. He agreed immediately. The Buddha extended his right hand, and Sun Wukong leapt. He flew through the air faster than lightning, faster than thought itself. He traveled for what seemed like an eternity until he saw, in the distance, 5 great pillars rising from the ground, reaching up into infinity. These must be the pillars at the edge of the universe, he thought. He had reached the very boundary of existence, far beyond the Buddha's reach. To prove he had been there, Sun Wukong urinated at the base of the central pillar and used his magical hair to write his name on another. The great sage equal to heaven was here. Then he leapt back, ready to claim his victory. He landed in the Buddha's palm with a triumphant grin, demanding the throne of heaven. But the Buddha simply turned his hand over and showed Sun Wukong his fingers. There, on one finger, was the writing Sun Wukong had left on the pillar. And the unmistakable scent of monkey urine rose from the base of the Buddha's middle finger. Sun Wukong had never left the Buddha's palm. The 5 pillars were the Buddha's 5 fingers. In his arrogance, Sun Wukong had failed to recognize that true power was beyond his comprehension. No amount of strength or magic could defeat wisdom and enlightenment. Before Sun Wukong could react, the Buddha transformed his hand into a mountain and pinned the Monkey King beneath it. This mountain, called 5 Elements Mountain, held Sun Wukong trapped but alive, with only his head exposed. There he would remain for 500 years, fed with iron pellets when he was hungry and given molten copper when he was thirsty, a prisoner of his own arrogance. The great warrior who thought himself invincible had finally met his match, not in strength, but in wisdom. And beneath that mountain, the long journey toward transformation would begin. 5 centuries passed, empires rose and fell, generations of humans lived and died, and Sun Wukong remained trapped beneath 5 Elements Mountain, unable to move, unable to escape. The cocky, arrogant warrior who had thought himself invincible was broken down by time and isolation. He had centuries to reflect on his choices, on the path of chaos and destruction he had carved through existence. Power without purpose had led him here. Strength without wisdom had been his undoing. The world continued without him. Seasons changed, rains fell, snow blanketed the mountain, and still Sun Wukong remained, his only companion, the endless parade of his own thoughts. 500 years is a long time to think about mistakes. Long enough for even the proudest heart to begin questioning itself. Long enough for transformation to take root, even in stone. Then one day, a monk appeared. His name was Tang Sanzong, and he had been tasked by the Bodhisattva Guanyin to travel west to India to retrieve sacred Buddhist scriptures that would help bring enlightenment to China. The journey was long and dangerous, spanning thousands of miles through territories infested with demons and monsters. He needed companions, guardians who could protect him on this perilous quest. Guanyin had told him that beneath this very mountain lay a warrior of unmatched skill who could serve as his protector. Tang Sanzong climbed the mountain and found Sun Wukong's head protruding from the rock. The monk was gentle and kind, speaking to the trapped monkey with compassion rather than judgment. There was no gloating about the mighty warrior brought low, no lectures about pride coming before a fall. Just simple human kindness toward a suffering being. He explained his mission and offered Sun Wukong a chance at redemption. If the Monkey King would serve as his guardian on the journey west, helping protect him from the demons and dangers that lay ahead, Sun Wukong would be freed from his prison and given a path toward true enlightenment. Sun Wukong agreed immediately. He was desperate for freedom, willing to agree to anything. 500 years of imprisonment would make anyone eager to escape. Tang Sanzong removed the Buddha's seal from the mountain, and Sun Wukong burst free, laughing and celebrating his liberation. The mountain crumbled away, and for the first time in half a millennium, the Monkey King stood on his own 2 feet, breathing free air, feeling the wind on his face. But the moment his freedom was secured, his old nature reasserted itself. Why should he serve a mere mortal monk? He had been the great sage equal to heaven. He had fought the armies of the celestial realm and nearly won. What did he owe this fragile human? He could return to Flower Fruit Mountain, resume his old life, gather his subjects and live as he pleased. He began to leave, dismissing Tang Sanzong's protests. Tang Sanzong then revealed a golden headband, an ornate circlet of beautiful craftsmanship. Through clever words and gentle persuasion, he convinced Sun Wukong to put it on, suggesting it was a gift befitting a great warrior. The moment it was in place, it tightened, and no amount of power could remove it. Sun Wukong pulled at it, tried to transform it away, attempted to destroy it with magic, but nothing worked. It had become part of him, as permanent as his own bones. Whenever Tang Sanzong recited a certain sutra, the headband would constrict, causing Sun Wukong excruciating pain. It was a leash, ensuring the Monkey King's cooperation. The Buddha had provided this tool knowing that Sun Wukong's transformation could not be forced, but his presence on the journey could be ensured. Sun Wukong was furious, raging at this new imprisonment. But this prison was different. It came with a purpose, a direction, something his life had always lacked. He had spent centuries seeking power for its own sake, but power without purpose had led him to a mountain prison. Perhaps this journey offered something different. And so, reluctantly at first, Sun Wukong agreed to serve as Tang Sanzong's guardian. The journey to the west began. Along the way, they were joined by other disciples, each with their own stories of fall and redemption. Zhu Baji, the pig demon who had once been a celestial marshal before being cast down for his lustful behavior. Sha Wujing, the sand demon who had been a heavenly general before breaking a precious vase and being banished. Each carried their shame, each sought redemption. But Sun Wukong was the leader, the protector, the warrior upon whose shoulders the mission's success largely rested. And though he chafed against Tang Sanzong's restrictions and the monk's infuriating insistence on compassion even for enemies, something began to change within the Monkey King. It was subtle at first, barely noticeable even to himself. But the journey was long, and change, real change, happened slowly. They faced countless demons and monsters. Many of these creatures were more powerful than they first appeared, some backed by celestial beings who had their own agendas, others serving ancient evils that predated heaven itself. Each battle tested Sun Wukong differently. His master's life was constantly in danger, and for the first time in his existence, Sun Wukong fought not for glory or pride, but to protect someone else. He learned patience, waiting for the right moment to strike rather than charging in recklessly. He learned strategy, using his intelligence rather than just his strength. When demons disguised themselves or created illusions, his new divine sight pierced through deceptions, but he had to think carefully about how to expose them without endangering his master. He learned sacrifice, enduring the painful tightening of the golden headband when he disagreed with his master, but still choosing to obey because the mission was more important than his pride. There were times when Sun Wukong's old nature emerged, raw and unfiltered. When bandits attacked them on the road, Sun Wukong killed them without hesitation. They were evil men who preyed on travelers, and in his view, they deserved death. But Tang Sanzong was horrified, believing all life was sacred, that even the wicked deserved chances at redemption. How could they seek enlightenment while leaving trails of corpses behind them? Sun Wukong could not understand this weakness. These were not innocent creatures but murderers and thieves who would kill others if allowed to live. Wasn't protecting future victims the greater good? But Tang Sanzong saw the world differently. Every life contained the seed of Buddha nature. Every being, no matter how fallen, could find the path to redemption if given the chance. Had Sun Wukong himself not been given such a chance? The argument raged between them, and Tang Sanzong recited the sutra, tightening the headband until Sun Wukong fell to his knees in agony. It seemed cruel, even unjust. But slowly, through countless such trials and conversations, Sun Wukong began to see the wisdom in his master's words. Power was easy. Restraint was hard. Any fool could destroy. It took wisdom to preserve, to see the potential for good even in darkness. One particular trial tested Sun Wukong's growth profoundly. A demon named White Bone Spirit disguised herself 3 times, first as a young woman, then as the woman's mother, and finally as the woman's father, attempting to get close enough to Tang Sanzong to devour him. Each time, Sun Wukong's divine sight saw through the disguise and he struck the demon down. But to the other disciples and to Tang Sanzong, it appeared that Sun Wukong was murdering innocent people in cold blood. Despite Sun Wukong's protests that these were demons in disguise, Tang Sanzong refused to believe him. The monk saw what he believed was his guardian growing increasingly violent and paranoid. After the 3rd killing, heartbroken and convinced that Sun Wukong had become a murderer, Tang Sanzong expelled him from the group, sending him away forever. Sun Wukong returned to Flower Fruit Mountain, rejected and misunderstood. He had been trying to protect his master, had been doing the right thing, and yet he had been cast out for it. The old Sun Wukong would have raged, would have declared his master a fool and good riddance to him. But something had changed. Sun Wukong found himself worrying about Tang Sanzong, wondering if the monk would survive without protection, hoping that the others could keep him safe. When news reached him that Tang Sanzong had been captured by demons and was about to be eaten, Sun Wukong did not hesitate. He did not gloat about being proven right. He did not demand apologies or recognition. He simply went to save his master, because that was what a true guardian did. He rescued Tang Sanzong, and the monk, seeing his own mistake, welcomed him back with tears of gratitude and remorse. The journey took 14 years, filled with perils that would fill libraries with tales. They crossed rivers guarded by ancient spirits, traversed mountains inhabited by powerful demons, navigated kingdoms where monsters ruled disguised as kings. They faced demons who could command fire and wind, spirits who could steal souls, and creatures whose power rivaled Sun Wukong's own. But through it all, Sun Wukong transformed. The arrogant warrior who had nearly destroyed heaven became a guardian who placed his life between danger and those he protected. The being who had sought immortality for selfish reasons learned to value life beyond his own. The monkey who had been born from stone discovered his humanity, that indefinable quality that makes compassion more valuable than conquest, that makes protecting others more meaningful than proving oneself. He learned to work with his fellow disciples rather than dominating them. He learned to listen to his master's wisdom even when it conflicted with his warrior's instincts. He learned that sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when not to fight, that mercy can be more powerful than violence, that true leadership means serving others rather than ruling them. There were moments of joy too. Laughter around campfires, quiet conversations under starlit skies, the satisfaction of protecting innocent villagers from demonic threats. Sun Wukong discovered that heroism felt different from glory. Glory was about himself, about others recognizing his greatness. Heroism was about others, about making their lives better, safer. The reward was not praise but the simple knowledge that his power served a purpose beyond itself. When they finally reached the Western Paradise after 14 years of trials and tribulations, Sun Wukong had become something more than a warrior. He had become worthy. They obtained the sacred scriptures, the goal of their long quest. But the real treasure was not in the scrolls they carried back but in the transformation each disciple had undergone. The Buddha himself recognized this transformation. He saw not the arrogant monkey who had once demanded heaven's throne, but a being who had learned the greatest lesson of all, that true power was not the ability to do whatever you wanted, but the wisdom to know what you should do. True strength was not defeating every enemy, but protecting those who could not protect themselves. True greatness was not claiming the throne of heaven, but serving a purpose greater than oneself. The Buddha granted Sun Wukong the title of victorious fighting Buddha, making him a true Buddha, equal in status to those he had once rebelled against. It was the title he had once demanded through force, now given freely because he had finally earned it through wisdom and sacrifice. The golden headband fell away, no longer needed. Sun Wukong had learned to constrain himself. He had mastered the greatest enemy he would ever face, the one no amount of martial skill or magic could defeat, himself. The discipline he had lacked at the beginning of his journey had been forged through 14 years of trials, through countless moments of choosing the harder right over the easier wrong. The Monkey King's story ends where it began, with transformation. But the stone that cracked open on Flower Fruit Mountain had produced a creature of chaos and destruction. The journey to the west had refined that creature through discipline and purpose, producing something the universe had never seen, a being of limitless power who chose to use it wisely. And so Sun Wukong took his place among the enlightened ones, no longer the rebel or the prisoner, but the protector, the disciple who had finally learned his greatest lesson. In the cosmic balance of heaven and earth, power and discipline had finally found their harmony in the most unlikely of vessels, a monkey born from stone who became a Buddha through choosing the harder path, again and again, until at last he was transformed. His story reminds us that we all carry both chaos and order within us, that true strength comes not from power alone but from the wisdom to wield it justly, and that redemption is always possible for those willing to walk the difficult path of change. The Monkey King's journey from selfish warrior to enlightened protector shows us that our greatest battles are not with external enemies, but with our own nature, and that victory in that internal struggle is the only victory that truly matters. Thanks for journeying with us through Sun Wukong's incredible transformation. If this tale of power meeting discipline resonated with you, show some love with a like and subscribe for more legendary stories from ancient cultures. Which part of the Monkey King's journey inspired you most?